Soldering copper pipe fittings isn't difficult, but you'll need practice before you're perfect. Once you've mastered the skill, you'll see why copper plumbing is appreciated for its professional look. Copper is a durable, clean, and functional connecting system. For soldering, you'll need a propane torch, spark lighter, emery cloth, round wire brush or 4-in-1 cleaning tool, flux, lead-free solder, and a cloth rag. If you'll be soldering in a cramped space or against a wooden joist, also have a fire barrier handy. Start by preparing the inside of the fitting, which may be a simple connector, a T-fitting, an elbow, or a valve. Ream the inside of the fitting with the wire brush. The brush attachment of a 4-in-1 cleaning tool also can be used. Using the emery cloth, clean the outside of the pipe to which the connector will be soldered. If the pipe has been freshly cut, you'll want to carefully deburr the inside of the pipe with a deburring tool or the handle of a pair of pliers. Apply the lead-free soldering paste or flux to the last inch of the pipe. Then slide the fitting onto the pipe until it seats firmly, twisting slightly to spread the flux evenly. Extend solder off the roll about 8 to 10 inches, bending the end. Light the propane torch and heat the end of the fitting until you hear the flux begin to sizzle. Move the flame around the fitting to evenly distribute heat. While still heating the fitting, touch the end of the solder to the joint until it begins to melt. Remove the flame and press the solder against the joint so that about 3/4 of an inch melts and is drawn into the joint by capillary action. When done correctly, the solder will flow around the joint and leave a thin bead of solder around the end of the fitting. Before the solder solidifies, wipe away excess solder and flux with a folded rag. The pipe is very hot, so do this carefully. Here's a tip. When working on existing pipes that have carried water, be sure the end of the pipe you're soldering is dry, or it won't heat properly. After completely draining the lines, a plumber's trick is to stuff a small piece of bread into the pipe to absorb excess water, allowing for even heating of the joint. Don't worry about the bread, it'll dissolve and be flushed out of the pipe when you turn on the water. Cross-linked polyethylene, or PEX, is a new plumbing pipe gaining in popularity. Flexible and durable, it can make installations easy because you don't need additional connections to go around corners. PEX joints require either plastic compression fittings or brass connectors permanently sealed to the PEX with metal crimp rings. Keep in mind that because code requires that compression fittings must always be accessible, the permanent nature of brass fittings is often a better choice. To join PEX to existing copper pipe, it's best to use a brass adapter that is rigidly soldered to the existing copper pipe. Then attach the PEX tubing to the adapter with a specialized crimping tool to complete the connection. Now ream the inside of the brass PEX adapter with a wire brush or 4-in-1 tool. Clean the outside of the deburred pipe end with emery cloth. Apply flux to the last inch of the pipe. Then slide the adapter onto the pipe until it seats firmly, twisting slightly to spread the flux evenly. Apply the flame of a propane torch to the fitting on the joint end. While still heating the fitting, touch the end of the solder to the joint until it begins to melt. Remove the flame and press the solder against the joint so that about 3/4 of an inch melts and draws into the joint by capillary action. Before the solder solidifies, carefully wipe away excess solder and flux with a rag. Then allow the finished connection to cool completely. Cut the PEX tubing to length. There's no need to deburr the tubing. Just slip a crimp ring over the end. sliding it back about 2 inches, and push the PEX firmly onto the nipple of the adapter until it is fully seated. Slide the crimp ring to within 1/8 of an inch of the end of the tubing and within 1/4 of an inch of the brass fitting. Make sure the ring is perpendicular to the tubing. Center the jaws of the crimping tool over the ring and fully squeeze the crimping tool once. Don't crimp a second time, or you could weaken the ring. Check the connection with the gauge that comes with the crimping tool. If the crimped ring is too large for the go slot on the gauge, or if the no-go slot of the gauge indicates that the ring is too small, cut the tubing and try again with a new crimp. If the go slot fits, the joint is good. There are 3 types of plastic pipe used in home plumbing. CPVC is a narrow diameter pipe often used in place of copper for water supply lines. PVC and ABS are wider diameter pipes used primarily for drainage. These plastic pipes require specific types of primers and cement to be joined properly, so be sure you buy the right kind for your installation. Solvent vapors can be volatile, so have plenty of ventilation and ensure there are no spark or flame sources in the work area. Cut the pipe to length with a plastic pipe cutter or saw and miter box combination for a square cut. Use a deburring tool to deburr the freshly cut end of the pipe. Apply an even coat of primer on the end of the pipe and the inside of the fitting. This softens the plastic a bit to prepare it for the cement. Be careful with the primer, as it will permanently stain whatever it gets on. Using a separate dauber, apply cement to the outside of the pipe and inside the fitting. Working quickly but carefully, slide the pipe all the way into the fitting, twisting slightly to distribute the cement. Continue to hold the joint together for 10 seconds. It's normal for the joint to feel slightly warm as the glue sets. Use a clean rag to wipe excess glue and primer from the joint.
Most plumbing is out of sight. The part that's visible usually has a nice shiny finish that damages easily when it comes in contact with tools. Plumbers often put tape over the jaws of their wrenches and pliers to keep them from damaging the finish. You can also wrap the fixture with a rag before putting your tools to work. Either method, combined with an ounce of caution, will protect your fixtures from damage.
Not all connections require soldering. If a connection will not undergo stress and always be accessible, sometimes a simple compression fitting will do the trick. There are different types of compression fittings, but all function the same way and consist of the same 3 basic parts. A compression nut with internal threads anchors the connection on one side. Next in line is the compression ring or ferrule. This can be made of brass or some type of plastic material. Completing the fitting is a threaded component that fits inside the compression nut. This can be a simple tightening body for completing the connection, or a valve or other assembly that is part of a faucet or other fixture. Making the connection is easy. First, slip the compression nut over the pipe that will take the fitting. It should fit snugly but move freely. Next, slide the ferrule onto the end of the pipe. Finally, hold the tightening body in place on the pipe end. Slide the compression nut over its threaded end and tighten it by hand. To complete the fitting, hold the tightening body with one wrench and twist the compression nut with a second wrench until snug. The pressure between the two nuts creates a watertight seal against the beveled edges of the ferrule. Feel for any slow leaks after turning on the valve and tighten the fittings if necessary.
The first thing you have to do before you work on any plumbing supply line is turn off the water. It's a simple matter of turning a knob. The first place to look is at the water meter. All houses have a cutoff valve at the meter, usually one that looks like an outdoor spigot. Sometimes there's a cutoff on each side of the meter. Either will do the trick. There's no need to shut down the water with both valves. Turn the knob clockwise until it stops to cut off the water. An unfortunate consequence of water, mineral deposits, and metal is that the valve sometimes gets stuck. If this happens to you, spray the stem of the valve with a penetrating lubricant like WD-40. Wait a few minutes and try again. You can minimize the problem of sticky valves when you turn on the water again. Turn the valve clockwise until it stops, and then turn it counterclockwise about a quarter turn. This minimizes the metal-to-metal contact and almost always keeps the valve from getting stuck. Sometimes the valve will begin to leak around the stem as the result of turning the water on and off. If it does, tighten the packing nut a bit to stop the dripping. A disadvantage of cutting the water off at the meter is that it cuts off water to the entire house. You may be fixing a minor drip in the kitchen faucet, but you've knocked out the water to the shower, the toilet, the dishwasher, the washing machine, and everything else in the house. Newer homes have cutoffs at the sinks, dishwasher, toilet, tub, anywhere there's supposed to be water. Older homes may or may not have cutoffs. In the kitchen, look under the sink for a cutoff to each faucet and to the dishwasher. In the bathroom, look for cutoff valves under the sink and where the supply line enters the toilet. The shutoffs for the tub usually are in the wall behind the faucets. That may take you into one of the bedrooms, into a built-in closet, or simply to a panel that screws into the wall. The cutoffs for the washer are the easiest to find. They're right above the washer. No matter where you find the cutoff, the rules are pretty much the same. Turn the handle clockwise to cut off the water. Turn it counterclockwise to turn the water on again. To keep the valve from sticking, turn it all the way clockwise and then about a quarter turn counterclockwise. If the valve leaks around the stem, tighten the packing nut.